Okay, welcome everyone. Please mute yourself except if you're asking a question, and also feel free to put questions in the chat as we go along. Okay. The webinar is being recorded. The webinar will also be uploaded after today. There are several items that we're going to cover. Please note that this is really more like a pre-bid conference. It's not a competition with each other. And we really want to make it really a Q&A opportunity. And we really want everybody to ask questions and get as much out of this as we can. We will try to record any questions, and if there's things that we feel we need to, we'll add that to the ACHA website for the frequently asked questions. So kind of to help the process as we go forward. Okay, then you see we have a lot to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and carry on. So here are the presenters. Hello, I'm Tracy Bond. I'm currently on the board of ACHA. And as such, I'm actually the board liaison for the award committees. So that includes fellowship. And if John and Bill, if you can also introduce yourself.
Yep, I'm John Rufo, and I am the jury chair. I've been on the jury for, I think this is will be my third or fourth year, and this will be my second year as the jury chair.
And I'm Bill Hercules. I'm a past president of the college, and a few years before that, I was also the board liaison. And this year, I was a sponsor and letter writer for those that were elevated.
And this is the FACHA class of 2023. They are actually joining us today, so hopefully they will help with some of the conversations as we go forward. And maybe if each of you can introduce yourself.
Don't all talk at once now. Anne, you want to go first?
Yeah, sure, I'll go. Sorry, I was on mute. So I'm Anne Adams. I'm president-elect of ACHA, so I'm 1 month and 2 days away from holy terror, I think, but from being president. And I have a few things that I'll add in the presentation, but really I represent the option 2 for the options for your fellowship.
Okay, hi everybody. I'm Diana Anderson, fellow this year, and I'm going to talk about the category around research, education, and literature.
I know Jill's on.
Good afternoon, Jill Bergman. I applied under category 2 as well, under leadership and service to industry.
Great.
And I'm Steve Langston, and I applied under category 1.
Great. Okay, I'm going to step in here. So the Council of Fellows was created about 20 years ago, modeled after the AIA College of Fellows, and the criteria initially for many years followed that criteria. And then in 2020, I think it was, we decided, and the board decided, to modify the criteria, make it more specific to healthcare architecture, realizing that healthcare architecture is a little different than the categories that are of the objects or the categories that for fellowship to the AIA itself. So we've gone through those changes, and this is really will be the third year that we've implemented the changes, and so the criteria reflects that. Fellowship is not a lifetime achievement award, but it does recognize meaningful and measurable contributions and an impact to the discipline of healthcare architecture. It's really the highest honor for an individual within our specialty of healthcare practice. And we encourage those that feel that they have the qualifications to apply and do this. We had 4 successful candidates this year, and that was the most that we've elevated in many years, which is terrific.
And the first time for 3 women, just saying.
Which is great. That's great. We've moved, and I'm going to toss this to you now in terms of the changes that have been made in the process.
Yep. So the good news about being able to, I just went through the process, the fellowship process. There's a few things that happened. First, we have decided that we're going to split the fellowship and the Lifetime Achievement Award presentations. So fellowship has moved to the SLS. So this year, the deadline is March 31st. The elevation is June 21st. So it is a little quicker. And just for those of you who don't know, SLS will be in Denver this year in late July, and that's all I can tell you right now on the exact date. We're getting really close to giving you the date, but I can say late July. There's a few things that we have found as part of this process, and we decided to make some easy changes to your benefit, not making it more difficult. But we will only require, you have your sponsors letter, which is required to be an FACHA person. And then, but you need one other FACHA letter. It used to be 2. So one FACHA that's not your sponsor, and then one ACHA letter. So hopefully that helps. And then the other thing is that this, we had multiple uploads for various sections, and we now are going to have it as one single PDF upload. So that those of us that went through it last year, it was painful to do the upload, and it has been. So I think we fixed that. I will say that we have a lot of things, again, that we have noticed, and we will be making some changes in the future, but those would come into a year from now. It's just too hard. Some of you I know have been working on this. Some of you may be resubmitting from this past year, and it was just too onerous to do that to you. So, so hopefully this helps. And if you have any questions, your sponsor can help, and we'll get into that in a little bit. And I know I personally am happy to help too. But is this me? Oh, this is me.
It's still you, Ann. Yep.
Okay, so on the website, and it's not the most easily found thing, just to say it, but I did look at it yesterday morning, and if you type, or this morning, if you type in fellowship in the search bar of ACHA, you will see the links and all the information. It has been updated. It is current as of today. Right. So everything we're talking about is on the website, and if you see something that doesn't look right, please reach out. But I think we've all combed through it, and everything is updated. I think that's all I have to say there. Oh, this is still me. All right. So just as a clarification, the qualifications are that you are certified for a minimum of 5 years, an ACHA certified person as of July 1, 2024, and you must be licensed a minimum of 10 years as of July 1, 2024. So in the past it was September, but because we've pushed everything up to March, then, or the elevation happens in July. That's why you see July 1. And I think that's it.
Okay, so this is something that I find to be very important when we review the submissions. Sometimes the reviewers get lost. What we do as a process is when the submissions come in, we review Emily and her crew review them for completeness and make sure that all the pieces are there. And we're going to try and improve that process even more this year. But then we go through, each of the jurors then reviews all the applications independent of each other, and then come back to compare notes and to talk about, whether there's congruence in some areas or discrepancies in other areas. And one of the things that I always stress is that, and I know that I've coached others in the FAIA as well, that it's very important to have a thread or a succinct theme that goes through the submission, sort of an overriding umbrella that everything falls within. Everything that's included in the submission should support that theme. It should not be loaded with a lot of extraneous information. We don't care about, that you've worked on 100, gazillion projects, or, you've contributed in so many various ways. We think it's important that everything that's in there, from your sponsor to the references to the letters, all contribute to the one, big idea or theme. I think that's really very important. The categories have not changed this year, and they really are the two and subcategories within them. Category 1 is really the advancing the art and craft of healthcare planning and design through either, I'll just click this, through superior evidence of your work in your practice, or that there's evidence of contributions to the practice of healthcare architecture. In other words, this isn't about your practice, it's about have you done, has your practice created new methods of delivering healthcare architecture? Not just specific projects, but what have you contributed to the practice as a whole? Could be things like mentoring. It could be things like standards that you've participated in creating. All of those things are about advancing the art and craft of healthcare planning. Steve, maybe you could let us know what you think about how did you pick this particular category?
Well, I think that was not only myself, but also my sponsor, which I think is one of the biggest keys to success, is getting a great sponsor. But we were looking at where in my practice had I had the most impact and a ripple effect outside of our region and across the country. And then when you lay all those things down, it really seemed to fall best into category 1A. And I run our design practice here, or that portion of our practice. So it's kind of what I'm doing on a day-to-day basis as well.
Good. Excuse me. Oops. Oh, something just happened. Are you guys there?
Yes.
Yes, we're seeing a background picture right now.
Yeah, you're seeing me in Africa. That's I don't know what happened there. The PowerPoint. Okay. Okay, we're back, right? You see it now?
Not yet.
No, you're not sharing yet.
We just see you.
Oh, I'm not
Yeah.
sharing yet. Sorry about that. I don't know what happened. It just went dead.
Ann or Tracy, do you have the PowerPoint?
Is it working now?
It doesn't appear that you're
No.
sharing.
Oh boy. Try this one more time.
Okay.
Jill, you want to help me get this open again? It's for some
Looks
like
reason, I don't know
Ann-
what it's.
I got mine
Looks
going.
like-
Anne's gonna share hers.
Yep,
You've got it, Ann?
I'm working on it. Let's see.
Since
Oh,
I'm on my phone, it would be a little difficult. So
Yeah.
thank you, Anne.
Yep. Okay, let me just get to the right. I don't know how to get rid of that. Okay, we were at 1B, right?
Yeah, the problem is now I've lost all my notes. Let me see if I can get it onto the other screen.
Okay, well, while we're doing that, 1B
Okay.
was Diana.
I'm sorry.
Okay,
Yeah, I'm sorry. So I'm gonna wing it here. You guys need to tell me if I'm gonna need to hand it to somebody else. So category 1B is really all those things that contribute to the practice of healthcare architecture, whether it's research, education, literature, and the successful applications of this did include citing not necessarily examples, but talked about how these things contributed to the practice of healthcare architecture. So, and I think this was Diana fell under this. Is that what we said?
yep.
Yep. So I mean, for
Diana,
the
you
me,
wanna-
it made natural sense because I split my time between architecture and medical practice. It just made sense that my portfolio was not going to be one of tons of building designs, that it was something else that had contributed to the practice of healthcare architecture, and mainly research, education, and literature. And I believe that I represented all three because you need a minimum of one, but it is allowed to cross different disciplines in this area. So I talked about all of these three. I will say, though, that the example portfolios online were mainly, I think there were two this past year geared towards more of a building design category 1A. And so to me, that was a sort of a challenge of what could this look like, because it's not a natural sort of image heavy type of portfolio, or it wasn't initially, and I had to really think outside the box to create something. So I didn't know if maybe the ACHA might put up an example for other applicants in the future around this type of category application and portfolio.
We might put yours on.
Okay. But it was a natural fit to me in terms of this as a category.
Okay.
Cool. Category 2 is really addressing healthcare environments through public service. And again, I think this is pretty clear what the thinking is here. If you've worked for organizations or done a lot of work in this area, and so I think maybe Ann and Jill, I think you were both under this service, contributions to service. So maybe each of you can chat about that.
Jill, why don't you go first?
Well, I will say I had a hard time between category 2 and category 1A because I have a wealth of project work, but I also have a significant career that has always been involved in professional development organizations, whether it be ACHA, AIA, Academy of Architects for Health, local board of directors here in San Francisco, and other things. So it was a tough balance, and what I kept coming back to is, how do I tell the one story about me, and what do I have the density of? And I will tell you, part of the discussions really stuck on that first bullet there, leadership, feeling like, wow, I never was the president of the board of directors. I was never the president of anything, but I was a leader. And so I felt very strongly that my career long of service to profession had a heavier weight to tell the story under category 2. I did still also include some projects. And so my exhibits were about 7 of them were all around the different organizations I have been involved in throughout my career, my contributions to healthcare architecture, and I included healthcare architecture work as well. But the story of my portfolio was all around service to profession and leadership within that profession.
Yeah, and for me, as some of you know me, I have a non-traditional project experience. I have worked for healthcare firms, I have worked for a hospital, and I have worked for a program management company. And so for me, it was more about, you know, healthcare organizations and you know, how I affected different aspects of each of those organizations. So I had pretty much focused on mentoring as well. And then obviously with ACHA, I had focused on my service to ACHA. Okay, I think this is you, John, but I can't see my notes either. So
It's actually Bill.
oh, it's Bill. It's Bill, right?
It is. So the fellowship is a unique body. There are very few fellows within the college as a proportion of overall healthcare architects, and even that proportion is even smaller when you compare them to the numbers to general architects. Nonetheless, it is a very elite club, and I would say that it's not elitist, but it is elite, and we make no apologies about elevating the quality of practice. But just like putting a building project together, it's a team sport, and you will need help to sort through this. And the biggest helper is going to be your sponsor. And I would argue that the first decision that you will have to make is the selection of your sponsor, and you need to do that with a clear head. You need to not just surround yourself with people that just will pat you on the back, but will also kick you in the butt. And this is an extremely important decision, and your sponsor will help in the selection of the theme. Your sponsor will write a one-page letter that's an introduction of who you are and what your salient elements are into fellowship. And if you don't have a sponsor letter, you're automatically disqualified. Your sponsor will also work with you to identify references, and then on your behalf, contact those references, coordinate the content of those references so that they don't all say the same thing, and the references are speaking specifically to salient points in your submission. So
Bill, I was just going to add one thing from my perspective, having reviewed a lot of these over the last few years. My own personal preference, and it's not stated in the criteria anywhere, but I think it's better to pick a sponsor that is not within your firm. It should be somebody outside the firm that sees the benefit of what you do. It shouldn't just be, you know, a senior partner within your firm. I think that's a mistake.
It's not disallowed, but
right.
part of what you have to demonstrate are the ripples. And the ripples are sometimes the products of your work and sometimes the relationships that you develop nationally. So I don't disagree with you, John.
Yeah.
So relative to the submission questions, your sponsor should be the first line of defense in asking questions. If you have technical questions, those might go to Emily. If there are content questions or other things like that, they might go to others. But if you do have any questions, ask your sponsor first.
Did you want to mention that if the sponsor can't answer it, they'll go to Emily, and then who will address it to Tracy? Right.
Well, yeah, there is a hierarchy here, but you start with your sponsor. And if there are no, we can't really resolve that, then we'll escalate it.
Yeah, so as stated earlier, we have moved up the date for the submission. So it's March 31st, 5 p.m. And that's actually supposed to be Eastern
right.
time.
We fixed that on the other one that
on mine it got fixed.
Yeah, and it's been changed on the website. It is 5 p.m. Eastern time, so please ignore the Central time.
Yeah. And we do strongly urge that, you know, you upload your submissions early if you can, in case we can find something. Like sometimes there's elements or things that have been missing, which then impacts the review of your submittal. So if you can, if you have the time and you can upload it early, I think that is an advantage. So in case we find something early, that you can then update it and then get it in by the deadline. And we will try to send out some kind of a sort of an e-blast to kind of remind everyone of that date. So the submission, it is done through Certami. As we said this year, we're going to try to do it so that it's actually one submittal instead of broken into multiple parts. We think that probably will help making sure that your submission is viewed the way you want it to be seen, as opposed to us trying to put it back together. And I think that will also help the jurors, hopefully in a positive fashion as well, in terms of reviewing your submittals. Okay. And as we said, that deadline is at 5 p.m. Eastern time on March 31st. And still the application fee is still $100, as it has been for a little while. So
Tracy, do we know, is there a maximum file size for that PDF? If there is, we should probably publish that as well.
Yeah, we're looking into that now. So we're still trying to resolve this with Certami to make sure that we can make that happen. So a little more to come on that, but that's the intent right now. So this is the jury. There are 5 FACHA fellows on the jury. As you can see, there's 1 TBD up there. So we'll hopefully get that filled soon. And you need to have basically 3 out of 5 jurors to elevate you as a fellow. Now, so that in the next slide kind of explains that a little bit more. What happens is basically, you know, the jury will evaluate everybody, and we evaluate everybody individually, and then we come together and we discuss it and collaborate on that.
I think the big thing is that the jury will not add any criteria to the evaluation. So we just want to make sure that that's clear with everybody.
Yeah.
Again, just as a part of the process, what we do is, you know, our first call is to go through the criteria. Even though most of us have been through it before, we'll go through the criteria, talk about the criteria, make sure there's a clear understanding of what the criteria is before any submissions come in. And then the submissions come in, they go through that screening process, and as we said, we'll get that first. We'll take a look at it, make sure that from our standpoint, to make sure that everything is complete. We then distribute it to each of the jurors, and they will go through it individually, as I said, and do their own evaluation. We will develop together a format of so that we can track, you know, try and be consistent among our reviews in terms of what we're looking at and what we're trying to do. And then we come together as a group to compare notes and see if we can arrive at a consensus for moving forward. And usually it takes a couple of calls to do that. And there may be some questions, and that before it goes to the board, if you will, with our recommendations.
Yes.
Yes.
So you hit all this, right? So we're good.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So once the jury compiles all that, basically me being the liaison to the board, I basically take those recommendations to the board. And once it gets submitted, that really, as you see here in the bold, it's the nominees, sponsors, and other interested parties are expressively instructed not to approach any of the jury to discuss any of the deliberation of the submissions. Once it's in, you got to just kind of let it go till we go through this process. And so basically then, if you go to the next slide, once it goes to the board, then the board then will review what was submitted, the summary of everything, but it's actually the board who makes that final approval of who becomes the fellows. Okay. And then upon that approval, the ACH president is the one who actually will communicate to the successful and the unsuccessful nominees. And it's done all at the same time. So everybody knows at the same time. We also make sure that we notify the sponsor as well. The notifications will be no later than the 21st. A lot of this is just to make sure that it's done in a timely fashion, because as we stated, we want to be able to present this at the Summer Leadership Summit this year, which is in late July. So that's part of the whole idea of we shifting everything a little bit forward. I know it makes it a little bit more of a time crunch for everyone. And that actually includes the jury members to try to get the reviews in a timely fashion. And just basically the submissions, become property of ACHA. So we just want to make sure that the contents within the submission are free from any kind of copyright statements or anything of that matter.
Yeah,
Okay.
and that does include the photography, guys, and that is part of your submission. But just remember we don't want to get in trouble with any photographers.
Okay. And resubmission. So, I think keep in mind the world doesn't end basically if you're rejected. But we really, really encourage everybody to resubmit. Okay. It's not, we have multiple people who've resubmitted over time to become a fellow. So sometimes it's something that's very minor that causes it to kind of shift down, I guess, in the spectrum and not quite make the cut. So we really, really encourage everybody to apply again. Now, the one thing that we do note here is that if you do try 3 consecutive cycles and you're not successful, then there is a break of 2 years before you apply again. And then when you apply again, it becomes just as if you're applying for the first time. It's viewed that way. So, but really, if you're rejected the first year, please, discuss and find out maybe where there might be things that you can improve upon, and please resubmit, and you'll probably be successful the next time.
And I would say I think in the information that's on the website, it will tell you that you don't need to resubmit letters. I would discourage that. I think if you think about if you were a jury member, you would really want to see everything in one place and not have to say, oh, hey, Tracy, can you get me those letters from last year so that we can see it again? So it does say that again, we will probably update things for a year from now, but if you are resubmitting, please include the letters, even though it doesn't say you have to, and it won't hurt you, but it just makes it easier for everybody.
And also the one thing to also think about, you may also want to review those letters and see if you want to get them updated and maybe make them a little bit stronger, because those are also reviewed. Yeah. So one more thing to think about.
Well, let's talk about what success looks like. I think the ACHA will have many of the categories on the website, and we urge you to go look at those. As Diana pointed out before, her submission, we're sort of flying in the dark a little bit because there was no go by, oh, okay, this is what this looks like. Oh, wow, the bar's a little higher than I expected. Or, I think we can do that. Make sure that you're clear about the category of nomination and why. Also, structure your submission in the exact order of the application and answer all the questions that are asked. You don't want a technical disqualification at all. Preference your clients should sign your declaration of responsibility in your exhibits. It's actually preferred that your clients do rather than having a colleague do it. It demonstrates a wider degree of impact. And speaking of impact, it's common to all categories that this is about influence and impact. I remember a long time ago when I was submitting my fellowship application, Joe Sprague was my sponsor. And he looked at me after I went through this big laundry list of all these things that I was very proud of. And he looked at me and he said, "So what?" "What do you mean, so what?" "So what? So where's your impact?" So it's kind of a humbling experience, but you have to dig deep. And there are so many people that are part of the college that are deserving of to be elevated, but it is a matter of digging deep. Just because you've got the credential doesn't mean that you're just automatically on your way to fellowship. You have to exhibit that level of influence and impact.
I think that's it. So now,
Any questions?
yeah. There's some questions in the chat. Okay, that was to me only, so never mind. Yes, Brenna, we can talk after.
Good.
Oh, come on, guys, you gotta have questions.
Okay, so who nominates? Your sponsor formally your sponsor will nominate you. That's why you need a good sponsor. But this is something that you have to decide to do. Talk it over with whoever your sponsor is, and your sponsor will officially go to the jury and say, on behalf of this person, I think that this person needs to be elevated for a variety of reasons, and that's all contained in the one-page letter. But officially, it's your sponsor.
Anything else? No? Well,
It
there's
would
two
seem
of
that we
my,
did a good job of explaining everything.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
actually did.
Well, there's two of my co-Hamas cohorts on this call, so.
And who else from Hamas other than me, Eric?
Isn't Bill?
Bill
First-
Percival?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't think I ever met Bill.
Oh,
I thought
okay. All right, guys.
Well, I think you guys did a great job because I was intending to apply this past year, but I got swamped with some new projects. So I'm going to try once again this coming year. But I'd already selected my sponsor, and I will tell you this, I won't tell you who it is, but that individual, what you guys portrayed today is step by step exactly what he told me. So
Great. Did we
very
lose Tracy? Oh, no, there she is. There.
Yeah, still here.
All right, guys.
Great.
That's
So
it.
if there are additional questions that come up afterward, should they forward them to Emily, forward them to you, or to Tracy?
I
I'll
would,
let Tracy answer.
yeah, I think I would say Emily or me, doesn't matter, but I think the formal way to go is probably through Emily, actually. But there is also up on the website that frequently asked questions, and we'll try to update that. If questions do come in, we'll try to update that. But you'll find a lot of information there because there's a lot of questions already been asked and answered.
Yeah.
So I
Good.
would recommend to take a look at that if you haven't had a chance to.
Yeah, and one thing I would say, because it sounds like some of the resumes that are on, or the submissions that are on the website. There's only 2, and I think we probably need to make sure we get 1 for each category on there. So I think that's something, Tracy, we could probably take between the last,
Yeah.
between you and I, we could probably figure that one out.
Yeah,
And a
we'll
little
take
more
a
current,
look.
please. Yeah, and a little more current, please.
Mhm.
Yes,
I've been
Yes.
noting that in when I do the website reviews every month, that those are getting a little stale.
yeah, they are. I agree with you, Paul. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Diana, you've got a question or a comment?
Well, I just maybe if any of the new fellows have tips or thought like last minute, I don't know, tricks of the trade. I will say that planning way ahead was very helpful. The portfolio was done in bits and pieces a little bit every day, but I would say a few months. It wasn't sort of something that could have been done in sort of a few days or even a couple of weeks. So at least for me, it was something that I had to plan very far ahead. And I just wanted to reiterate, Bill, what you said about the so what. And I think as my sponsor, that was probably the most impactful part of the process. I had always just put together academic resumes with lists of publications. I thought that would be enough. And really, when you pushed me to think about, what did this change? How did this impact the profession, the world, people around us? It really took kind of really digging deep. So it really wasn't just about the research you'd done or the education and the courses you had TA'd or taught. And I just sort of wanted to make that clear for some of the applicants. It really is about the impact in a big way. So
Yeah, I would echo that
Mhm.
as well. I think I'm pretty much an organization freak, and I had mine all organized, and I had little sticky notes, and this needs to happen then. And I did start, it was 6 months ahead, and then my son and I thought I had it all figured out, and then my son decided to get married in 2 months. So that was kind of a little rough. But I think the other piece too, the other trick of the trade I would suggest is on your reference letters. Because you do want a wide variety of letters. I specifically, when I asked, sent your sponsor sends it too, but I asked them to focus on X, Y, and Z so when I worked at the hospital, I wanted somebody to focus on what I did at X, Y, and Z. And then when I worked at Hamas, I focus on ABC, and tell them what you want them to focus on in your reference letter. Otherwise it just gets to be a generic letter, and that it's just not what people need.
Well, the jury also they're really smart people. They've been around. Many of them have led either the Institute or the Academy and have been at high levels in their organizations and within the profession for long periods of time. So they're going to be able to read through fluff and identify that in a nanosecond. Also, I would suggest that make sure that as you're laying things out, it's graphically pleasing. And the font is legible. You may look at the pool of jurors and see a little bit of gray hair, which suggests maybe they're all wearing glasses too. So make it easy for the jury.
Yeah, and I think
Bill,
the other thing we is it shouldn't look like a marketing a marketing proposal, right? It's really supposed to be personal. So, think of that as well.
Steve, did you have any tips?
I'll add on to what Tracy just said is, we all know the projects are a we event, but this really is all about you. And I think you really need to talk about your role, your impact, your influence. And the presumption is there's a we on these projects, but you need in your writing to really focus on you and your role and your impact. And we all want to say the we team and get into that humbleness of it takes a big team, but you're almost to the point of sick of yourself by the time you're done writing this thing. So
True.
The other thing was, and I had shared a design competition through the Society of Critical Care Medicine where the ICUs had to submit a video. And some people came back with very fancy, obviously a videographer had been paid to do this. And some came back with a camcorder that was bumpy along the way, and we all got nauseous watching it. And I have to say that we didn't care about that aspect, that it was really the content that was most important. And not everybody's firm may support this. Not everybody might have a marketing person to put this together, but I certainly think it really is just about the content, that it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a very professional package. Certainly it has to be pleasing to the eye, but I don't know if that's correct, Anne. But that was a little intimidating to me. You know, can this be just you putting it together in the evenings on your own time? And I certainly think it can be. It doesn't have to be something super professional or expensive.
Yeah, agree. It doesn't. As I said, it's doesn't need to be a marketing proposal.
There is a question, will this presentation be made available? And I expect that it will. Emily or Tracy?
Yes, we can add it to the
Yes.
website when we upload the recording.
Great, thank you.
Steve, did you have any
I was
tips?
just going to add, and I was just going to add a couple of tips from a juror's perspective, if that's
Please.
helpful.
Yeah.
One is, if you are submitting under 1A, you know, my expectation is that the design or planning quality is excellent. It's just not quantity. It's that it's really at a high level. And I think there are a lot of good examples out there. That's the first thing. The other thing is that if you cite that you accomplished this, or let's say mentoring, or you know, you put together a mentoring program, you know, within your firm, just as an example, we thought it was important to be able to show those people then went on and had impact. So that's where that impact thing comes in. Not just that you coached people, but that you were able to demonstrate that it had an impact. So there's little things like that that I think really go to sort of underscore or reinforce the impact of the submission. And that's not always evident when you go through submissions. I think in some cases it is, and that weighs very heavily, I think.
Okay,
Oh,
any
I do have
other
a
questions?
question, and this is to, I guess maybe the jurors. Oftentimes when we were putting our package together, it felt strongly that having a really good reference from the client themselves would be really impactful. And so I have a question towards the jurors. Do you think indeed having those testimonials as they're focused on what your category is, are they impactful and helpful for the applicant?
I'll say that they are, but it's important that they aren't just, you know, this is the greatest architect that ever worked. It has to be tied to whatever that theme or umbrella is, right? It's got to, everything that goes in there has to reinforce what the message is. So if it comes from, there's minimums in terms of FACHA and ACHA that are included, but also clients, I think, can have an impact and should have an impact, because it does demonstrate from a client perspective that the work is successful, but it's got to be from whatever that thread or that message is that you're trying to deliver.
Thank you.
Would you say, Bill, that that's the case?
I think so. I think so.
Cool. Does this mean we're done, Anne and Tracy?
I think so.
And then assuming all of you are going to apply, when you get done with your application, please feel free to maybe give us some of your feedback on the process, because like we said, we will be tweaking this a little bit, not for this year, but for the year after. And like, it was really easy for me to say to the group, this is ridiculous. Why in this day and age do we upload these things, you know, into different categories when all has to happen? Emily has to put it all back together to send it off to the jury. I mean, it was just silly, in my opinion. And so, you know, those are some easy ones, right? But we know that we know it's not 100% perfect. We're going to be working on it. But we did not want to wait 18 months for the next fellowship. So please give us feedback.
Yeah, and I I agree with that. We know that there may be some other updates that we might want to do about the outline and what it's telling you about in terms of all the submissions and the requirements to make sure that it's really clear. You know, it's not meant to be difficult to follow the process. So you know, things that you see could be improved upon or might be a little bit unclear. Although we know you're going to be working with your sponsor and they'll help clarify it, but we want to make sure that also our documents are very clear in terms of what we're asking you to submit.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you.
John and
Thank you very
Bill
much.
and class of 23.